All right, guys, and welcome to another episode of 4P Soccer. I am your host, Freddy Rojas, alongside here with Jerrick. Um, we're going to give you guys a little bit of our feedback on a little bit of what happened today in some league games, and a little bit on the World Cup qualifiers from the CONCACAF slash CONCACAF. Um, so, Jerrick, what do you want to start off by? Do you want to start off by the World Cup qualifiers, or do you want to start off with a couple league games this weekend?
I think we'll start off with where you said don't text me, don't call me, don't do nothing. And what did I do? I texted you. But the game, I'll say this, the game with Honduras and Costa Rica, I
was
didn't get a
awful.
chance. I didn't get a chance to watch it, but I just looked at the stat line. Domination from Honduras.
It looks like it was domination,
Domination.
but it wasn't.
Statistically.
But it wasn't. It wasn't. The thing is, and this is the part that frustrates me, right? Because Reynaldo Rueda, you're playing at home, you're playing with the crowd on your favor, you're in a stadium that you feel the presence of the fans, and then you play slightly cautious soccer. Dude, this is for the World Cup, right? I would obviously like I'll put it in perspective, right? With the Miami Hurricanes. The Miami Hurricanes were ranked number 2 last week. This week they're number 9. They just lost to Louisville, but they put up a fight to not get blown out by Louisville. Yes, Carson Beck had an off game. Why couldn't Honduras? I would accept Honduras losing to Costa Rica in Honduras if they would have put up a better fight. Statistically, they looked really well, right? Yeah, they had the ball possession, they had this, they had that, but it's like, and I'm sorry to say it this way, but it's like he was a bitch. He put out a shitty lineup. Well, he did a good lineup, but he played shitty soccer.
Yeah.
I I I get it. Costa Rica and Honduras, historically have have always had those big and back and forth fights, right? But is it really necessary for you to be that precautious with Costa Rica? Where you he like you've used? I mean, I see you pulling up the
Yeah,
stats.
I'm pulling up the stats
Like I
to
think
go
they had
over it.
like five shots on goal or three shots on target.
So I'll go over the stats based off of what Google says, because Google is always correct, right? 11 shots, one shot on target, 73% possession, 558 passes, 86% pass accuracy, two yellow cards, two corners, two offsides.
What did Costa Rica have? Read me Costa Rica's stats.
Five shots, one on target, 27% possession, 209 passes with 64% accuracy, zero offsides, zero corners. But they did get three yellow cards.
So you said what? 3 shots on target,
Two or one each.
one each. And dude, I would tell you the one that Costa Rica had hits the top of the crossbar and out, and I was like, we got saved in that game. There was moments in like towards the end of the second half, Costa Rica was like, okay, Honduras really doesn't want to come at us. That's fine. And they started playing very direct and going at them, and they almost had that opportunity to score.
Yeah.
Right? Alexis Vega from El Marathon had a good like 10, 15 minutes that he was in, right? Had I think he's the one that had the shot on target that went straight to Kaylor Navas's hand. But the thing is, why? And then when you go out and you look at the lineup, since we're in your classroom, I'm actually going to use that whiteboard over there. We're gonna change things up a little bit. All right. So I'm going to tell you the difference while I look up the.
I'll get you a marker. This was unplanned, people.
Yeah, but I got you. So look, while you do that, I'm gonna look up the lineups against Haiti. So what he did, you have Menjivar in goal. Right, and then you have Montes with Vega. You had Nahar and Rosales in goal. Then you had Flores and Arriaga. Because this is the one thing that uh, you have Kyoto. You had what's his name? I forget his last name. It's Alex something, Palma, and Benguche. Right? He plays a four. He rather likes to play a 4-2-3-1 by this formation, right? So, and Costa Rica played a 5-3-2. I want to say.
They played a 5-4-1 according to FOTMob.
All right, we're gonna go with a 5-4-1, right? They're literally going in and bunkering down for to get the point. That point favored Costa Rica, right? Because then in the second half, I know they put in here Arboleda. Then they put here Alexis Vega, which is this kid needs to leave Honduras, like in the winter market, or if not in the next market. I forgot who they subbed out for Palma, and then Pinto came in. Pinto's another one that needs to leave Honduras. He plays for Club Bolivia, right? And those were the four. I know there was a fifth substitution that they made, but I can't remember who it was. But those were the four main substitutions that he did, right? Okay, I like that. The idea was there, but then what happened that I do like that Rueda did against Haiti? The thing is, again, I go back to this. You're at home. Why are you going to be, yes, you're going to respect Costa Rica, but why are you going to sit back and be too protective against Costa Rica? You need to they needed to go at them from the beginning. That was my biggest criticism. They didn't like, and for example, when they had the ball possession, right? And I'll go here. So Benguche will get in the box. Then you have Kyoto on the wing. You had Palma on the other wing. You had I forgot his name. You had Flores and Arriaga playing on the other side. And then usually we'll put the two C. I'll just put CBs here because I'm not gonna write out their whole names, right? Usually Rosales and Nahar are more influential in the game. They didn't. If this right here was midfield, the most it came out to was right here. They didn't push up into the final third to try to help out Benguche, Palma, and Kyoto and try to get some of those crosses in. They stayed here kind of like almost waiting for the counterattack. That is fine. And they know that you don't trust these two guys as much as you would trust, forget, I'm blanking out his name, right? And I know these are usually are not our two starters. But then what happened? The back line in the second game against Haiti stays the same. Rosales, Montes, Vega, and Naja. The two sixes stay the same because there's no better sixes right now in Honduras than these two. Right? This was playing in the first league in the Saudi Arabia League, and Real is playing in the Spanish Division One league for Levante. You keep Kyoto on this side, and you keep Palma on this. No, let me. I know he put Palma as the 10, and let him play freely. Let me look this up real quick because I can't remember who was the other winger. That was Thursday. Nope. Here it is. Oh, you had Rivas. Rivas was the other modification, and you had Lozano, right? And I like the changes that he did. It made the team more aggressive, more on the front foot. This team, yes, like I said, I understand you don't trust these two center backs because they're not your usual starters. But it's the World Cup qualifiers. It's like almost he knew that he screwed it up, and I get it. You need to own up. You need to own up on it when you screw it up that bad. But those modifications, I think it was Thursday night when they played Costa Rica.
Yeah, it was a Thursday, the 9th.
Thursday the 9th. So I'm looking at it here. I'm looking at the lineup. Kyoto. Oh. So he had Palma. No, this was Alvarez instead of that one. And then Luis Vega, Jose Pinto, Alexi Vega. Anyway, it doesn't really matter substitutions. When I go and look at this, and I was like, okay, cool. You came out more aggressive in the second half, right? And what I feel like made this team better than this team, right? It's not just the fact that he had Palma playing on a free role and moving him around. Despite the fact that Lozano is playing awful and everything, Kyoto is having a rocky start, right? These guys, Kyoto and Flores, are playing for the same team in Saudi Arabia. Rivas is playing in the second division in the Turkish league. Palma is playing in the Polish league. Lozano is playing in the Mexican league, but he's about to be a free agent because they don't want him anymore. He's playing in La Liga, playing in the MLS, and playing in the MLS. You have a squad to compete. I don't understand why a player like Rivas, who's playing in the Turkish league, is going to get second hand to players that are playing in the League of Honduras. We just in this lineup here, we showed that we cannot compete with the players that are in Honduras. We need to, yes, maybe these two guys. This one is playing in Costa Rican league. But the Costa Rican league is probably just as good, if not slightly better than the Honduran league. And so these are some of the things that people always criticize. And me as a coach, I go out there and I look at it and I said, this makes sense. This guy has been in previous games with him, right? You also keep out a player like Brian Roches, who plays in the second division in Portugal, doesn't call him up anymore. You've also had players, and then because the biggest criticism has been we're lacking goals, we're lacking a center forward in the national team. Well, he plays in the second division in Portugal. Why don't you call up a second division player from Portugal to the national team? Why don't you do that? This guy is probably still, and in the moments that he's actually been called up, in the moments that he had played, he always found a way to find the back of the net. The criticism I always tell people is, despite the fact that Lozano is not having a good season, but defenders respect him because of what he has. It's like he almost turned the switch around. If I'm going into into the last two games in November, I think is November 13th and November 16th. This is against Nicaragua, and then this is going to be at Costa Rica. These are two away games. And then right now in the Group C, you have Honduras with 8. You have Costa Rica with 6. Yes, Costa Rica with 6. Haiti with 5. And Nicaragua with 1. So Nicaragua, you can pretty much say they are out of the race. There is no way for them to make a run to go to the World Cup, even if they were to beat Honduras and if they were to beat Haiti. They'll get 7 points, and then if Costa Rica beats Honduras, I mean, at best they'll end up in fighting for. Yeah, at best they'll end up in third, right? But the thing is, Honduras needs to come out aggressive against Nicaragua, get these 3 points right here. They'll be at 11. Though what you need to hope for is that these two tie. So then you're at 7. And then you are at 6. And then Costa Rica can at this point, if these two ties and Honduras manages to win, Honduras qualifies through. Because even if Costa Rica beats Honduras, they get 10. Even if Haiti beats Nicaragua, they're at 9. So Honduras needs to win the next game against Nicaragua and hopefully these two to tie for them to qualify through. Now let's go for the worst case scenario. Let's go for Costa Rica wins, so now they're at 10. No, they're at 9. Haiti's at 5 because Haiti just lost to Costa Rica. And then they play Nicaragua, they're at 8. They're 2 points ahead. This match, if Costa Rica manages to win against Haiti, this match is going to determine who's going to go to the playoff match and who's going to go through.
Yeah.
And Honduras, yes, even if they win, they still need to come out and try. They just need to tie at that point, but they need to try to come out for the 3 points. If you come out for the 3 points, you're at 14. They stay at 9, and then Costa Rica goes to playoffs, and you go straight through. The thing is, if I'm Reynaldo Rueda and I'm going into that final state and into those final 2 matches, I am coming out aggressive. He needed those. He had before they even played those 3 games in Honduras, he had 1 tie. They had 4 points before these 2 matches. If you would have won these 2 matches, so 10, they would have been at 13. They already would have been qualified to the World Cup because none of these other teams could have caught up to them. Honduras let themselves, mostly in this game. This is the game that hurt them the most. Let's not talk about this game. We're talking about this game right here. This is the game that has me still upset because in this game, they let their World Cup qualification go to waste. They dropped the points here that now is forcing them to win here, hope that these 2 tie, so then they can go relax into Costa Rica. But if I'm Reynaldo Rueda, first and foremost, my biggest criticism with him is always he's super cautious and he's too preventive. That's not modern day soccer anymore. Modern day soccer is you have to go at them. You have to go at them. And sometimes I sit down as a coach and I say, oh, I could be a pro coach because I could make, certain adjustments here and there, right? I get it. It's you have to run, you have to manage egos and all that stuff. But when it comes to game management, this is where your creativity comes around as a coach. This is sometimes shifting the players around and changing formation. That's sometimes on you. That is sometimes on you. You see that this wasn't working. with one striker up top, why don't you switch to like maybe a 4-4-2 or switch to a 4-3-3 when you were against Costa Rica? Why didn't you switch to a 4-2-4? Right? You know they have five defenders, and there was at times that they had six defenders in that back line. Why don't you tell the team to push up more? They're already parking the bus on you. And then before that, it was such a boring game. Before like the 80th, before the 70th minute, I'll say the 70th minute is when Costa Rica was like, oh, they're not going to really come at us. Let's try a few counterattacks and see if we can sneak away with 3 points. If you saw that this wasn't working, you change it. You change it. You know how many times I've been in a game where, let's say, I'm going to use this example, right? Last year, I played a 4. I'm going to give this example. I played a 4-4-2, but I played the diamond in the middle, right? And that's a horrible one. So we'll do this. I played the diamond midfield. I'm playing this team who's playing a 4-2-3-1. And I figured it out. I'm like, oh man, they're playing a 4-2-3-1. We're not shifting this around. I mean, this is not working. We're not controlling the midfield. I said, let's switch it up, and we're gonna play a flat 4-5-1. Then the coach at halftime changes to a 4-3-3. Because my thought process was, if we can get the two players on the wide, right? We go man to man in the midfield. We have the lone striker, and my two center backs can find these players out wide, and then go down the flanks, and then these players can crash the box, and then just cross it in. We have an opportunity to try to score, and that's really the instructions that I give my players. I said, just go down the flanks. He told me at the end of the game, he's like, dude, that was an amazing game. I was going to try to open you up because I saw you were playing narrow, and that's why I switched to 4-3-3. But then you throw me a curveball by switching to a 4-5-1. Again, this is in youth soccer. I don't understand why professional coaches sometimes cannot be like, let me change these things around. Especially when you're a national team coach, where the you don't see these players often, right? When you're playing club soccer, yeah, it's easy to say, we're gonna stick to this formation, and then every now and then change it around because you see those players. Those players already have your ideas and your thought process. So you can throw them into almost any other formation and it's gonna work. There was another game where one of my center backs went injured, and then I switched to a 3-2-4-1. And the girls did pretty good because they understand the whole vision of the game. These are professional players. You should be able to change it around and say, this is what we're going to do. And they should be able to adjust themselves and be able to make it work. This game right here is the one that costs us. This tie right here costs us so much. That's why I was upset about this game, and I was okay with this game. It was expected for us to win. But when you're playing too scared on your opponent, what's the whole point in having 70% ball possession? And that is my TED Talk about this and my frustration to it.
Yeah, so I looked up some of the qualifiers rules because each regulation's different, especially with the expansion. Honduras is currently first with 8 points, as we said. Costa Rica with 6. Now the final round group winners qualify for the World Cup. So as it stands, Honduras will qualify. All right. Now Costa Rica has a chance, but it's the two best runners up qualify for the FIFA playoff tournament. And right now, those two are Curacao and Costa Rica, because Panama I guess Panama has 6 points. Curaçao's probably going to be in that playoff round. It's Costa Rica and Panama that have to kind of fight off and have the better second place of those points, right? So
for Costa Rica, it's going to really come down to
it comes down to the last 2 games.
So the last 2 games, right? Can Costa Rica handle business against Haiti, right?
Yeah.
And then it's going to come down to, can Honduras beat Nicaragua and then complicate things a little bit for Costa Rica?
Yeah.
And then, like I said, if we can at least manage to win that, hope that those two tie, we're through. And then Costa Rica would have to come out guns blazing against Honduras to try to get that second spot. Because like you said, I do think Curaçao is going to go through. And then you know what's interesting? Here's the fun fact about Curaçao: half of those guys can get called up to the Netherlands to the Dutch team.
Yeah, yeah. So if anyone follows the Phoenix Rising, we had Joel Margarita, who was here for a while. He's now back in I think he's in Belgium. I think we talked about this last time, but he represents the Curacao national team. That's who he plays for. But yeah, I don't see any Netherlands. I don't see the Dutch picking anyone up from Curacao because they are good. They are really, really good.
Yeah, and Curaçao is also really good too.
Yeah,
So they
they're
have
just South
some,
American or Central American
or no, they're like the Caribbean, I think.
ish. You know,
Yeah, but
geographic.
yeah, they yeah, I took up too much time on this whole thing. I was just livid with that game.
So let's change gears over to the American game. So we had the United States versus Australia. Okay,
I didn't see it.
Haji Wright took a brace, so I think he's at Coventry City right now. But he scored a brace, which is really good. I think he's kind of solidifying himself and more to be a player, maybe a player to play behind Flo Balogun because he's still our guy, right? If we looked at the FOTMOB ratings, Haji Wright got a 4.6. Florian Balogun, who came in, I think in roughly the 70th minute, he got a 3.9. So obviously, no one's making crazy impacts, but that's what it is. Christian Pulisic went down with an injury,
That's what I heard.
with a hamstring, from what I hear, and it's not looking good for right now. I actually listened to another podcast. It's the Unfiltered Soccer podcast, and Landon talks about how Christian wasn't going to play against Australia, and that was what he heard. He was on the injury report, but then he's on the field and he's playing, and Landon goes, "Well, now like this is the time where these players are starting to have a flip the switch of, I'm not going to play if I'm hurt. I don't want to risk it for my club or potentially hurt myself for World Cup qualifiers." But now it's October, we're in the international break, and now they're like, I have to play because I have to show the coach that I can play at the high level. Especially, even with teams that have already qualified, like in the Honduras situation, they're trying to qualify, and that's like their first goal, right? Let's get to the point where we qualify for the World Cup. All those teams that have already qualified, now it's let's start to tweak our rosters. Let's try to find players that can be a part of that squad moving forward. Because the more time that these guys have to play in these training camps, I would say from November moving forward, if you don't have 75, 80% of your roster fill out for the World Cup, if you've already qualified, you need to get on it, right? We saw McKinney back on the field.
I feel like Jason, what's his name, Weston McKennie. He's so overrated, and the reason why, in my opinion, when you just mentioned one of the greats, Landon Donovan. I want to say he played the same position as Weston McKennie, but he was influential in the game. We don't have, and I know that we rely a lot on Christian Pulisic, but when you go look at Christian Pulisic's AC Milan, who does he have? Like look at the squad. They're stacked. He has probably one of the greatest midfielders of all time, putting him through balls to him. And
he has Rafael Leao.
He has my boy Luka Modric.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm glad we got rid of him. That's a different story.
Isn't Kyle Walker on that squad now?
I think so as well. You also have, I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head, but at the same time, who do we have? We have Weston McKennie. He's not even that influential for Juventus.
No.
So it's like, why? And then this kind of goes back to the point of Alexi Lalas saying, I don't remember if it was Alexi Lalas or if it was with one of my coworkers that I was actually talking to, where he was like, well, what's the point in having all these guys in Europe? They get called up to roster, right, for the game, and then they ride the bench. And they're not seeing significant minutes.
Yeah.
They're not playing those minutes where like the game is on the line, right? Where they're not playing those really intense moments where it's like, okay, It's 1-1. It's the 80th minute. The coach subs you in. He pulls out a striker because he wants you to try to, or takes out a center back or whatever. You're not playing those games. And then Weston McKennie, who is playing those games, he's average at best. And then we rely, and this is where one of my coworkers said, I don't think USA will ever, at least for this World Cup, won't be as competitive, is because we have to rely on players like Weston McKennie. And who's the other one? Not Timo Werner. He's German. He was playing Sargent.
Yeah. Yeah, Josh Sargent hasn't seen a lot of minutes on the national team now. I'm not a big Sargent fan, but I know with him at Norwich, he's getting significant minutes. He's scoring goals for them when he plays. I just don't see him outplaying Haji or Flo Balogun, or even like Tim Weah played this weekend or this past weekend.
Tim Weah is another one. He plays in La Liga. I think he plays for Valencia.
I think he moved. I can't remember who moved over to.
But he's on the bench too.
Yeah. Christian's one of the only ones, and Tyler Adams. Tyler Adams is getting significant minutes. Anthony Robinson.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are getting significant minutes.
It's tough. It's tough to try to be competitive when, again, this kind of goes back to what some of the Honduran, some of the former Honduran national team players have said, that the passport weighs a lot. And I get it. Some of these guys they see an American passport, they're like, oh, okay. But this kind of goes back to what even Jermaine Jones said, that these new, and I think this is a CONCACAF thing, because I've heard it from greats from Mexico, greats from Honduras, greats from USA, that these guys don't have that grit, but like before.
No.
Jermaine Jones was a bench warmer, I forget, in one team in the Bundesliga, and he said, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to show them that I deserve to be on the field. And then sometimes he would use the minutes that he would get in the U.S. men's national team to show his club team that he needed to be on the field. And then when he would come on the field, he would put the same intensity. He would do what USA. He would put it with what I think it was with Wolfberg or something like that. And he would put that as well. These guys, none of Honduras, no Mexico, no USA, and even Canada doesn't have the grit that some of these guys have now back in the day.
Yeah. So one of the big issues that a lot of players have nowadays is that they go to these European teams with the title. So I watched an interview with Matt Turner recently, and he was like, I'm at Arsenal, I made it. And then he got loaned, I think sold or loaned out to
Nottingham.
To Not Forest. And he was like, that wasn't the best fit. Hindsight's 2020, but it wasn't the best fit. And it's like with scouting and everything, like I talk to agents and they're like, we advocate for the best situation for our players all the time. Like that is the key to this. And when you're scouting players for your club, you need to be able to advocate to the coach or to the front office, this is the player that's going to get us to places. I can't foresee that being the case for American players where they're like, we should get this American player because one, they're really cheap, and two, they'll develop, but they won't be that guy, right? Christian Pulisic over in Chelsea wasn't the guy, but he had the name attached, the club name attached to his name. Christian Pulisic is playing for the Prem, for Chelsea. Has a historically successful program. Won a Champions League. I think he's the only American to actually win a Champions League. Did he play in that final? No, but he won it. But then he moved over to AC Milan, and when that rumor started was, hey, he's going to go to Italy, there were a lot of people who were like, why would you go from Chelsea, playing at the top level, to go into AC Milan in Italy, where, let's be honest, it has the not rumor, but it has like that title of it's the retirement league. A lot of the greats retire in Italy. We thought Ronaldo was going to retire in Italy before Saudi Arabia. And he went there, and I said this kind of to myself and to my close group of friends when we were discussing this, he's going to make an impact on that team. If you can get him in the right position, and I don't think him playing like a wing on the outside is the right fit for him, because he can be creative. If he plays the 10 sitting behind, I think it was Giroud at the time. If they can play off of each other, they're going to create a lot of opportunities. And he's been an incredibly impactful player for his side. that's the exception to the rule. Because even when we look at all the other greats, right? Clint Dempsey didn't play every single game. He wasn't their guy when he was playing for Fulham. Landon Donovan wasn't the guy. He did play and he got minutes, right?
At Everton.
But he wasn't like the Wayne Rooney at Everton, right? And so I think American players, one, the youth levels aren't helping players gain the experience to get out there, and we're not doing the right things to get our players developed and ready for the World Cup. Are we lining the pockets of the people who own the clubs and own the federation? Yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money in youth sports, but we're not doing the right thing by developing players. And I really like what your club is doing with, we're going to evaluate the players regularly. We're going to play small-sided games, and we're going to try to play it super quick. And we're not going to have these levels, right? These platform IDs.
No, and to that point, right? I'll even tell you this. My organization is currently even frustrated a little bit with a situation that happened at the UPSL level, because they were like, why don't we put some of these younger kids on the UPSL team to give them, again, that exposure? Because here in the U.S., for those that may be watching us international, we have the MLS, that's the top tier. Then you have USL, which is the USL Championship, which is the second tier. Then you have USL One and NISA, which is the third division per se,
and arguably MLS Next Pro,
and arguably the MLS Next Pro, which is the third division. And then you have UPSL, USL two, as like the fourth division, right?
Fourth, fifth,
more or less. And like, for example, and you know, I was talking to him on the phone not too long ago. One of his best players on his team is a 2012 kid for his 2010s, right? Also plays with some of the UPSL, plays on the Division One team every now and then. And guess what? His dad was like, hey, let's go do a tryout in Mexico. And guess who's interested on this 2012 kid in Mexico?
You want me to take a guess?
Yeah, take a guess.
Who would? I'll go for the big guy. I would think Club America would be the one to try to.
You hit it right on the coffin, nail on the coffin. He goes out there to this trial, bunch of scouts from Mexico, even the I think it was a U15 or U17 Mexican national team coach was on the field, and he said, "I want that kid." Club America.
Is he a dual national?
I think so.
Okay.
Then,
so good for him.
And then Club America was like, "We want that kid too." This is a 13-year-old boy who I've seen him play, and you see him play, and you're like, how is he keeping up with 25-year-old guys that play professionally in whatever other countries, right? Because you look at Olympians here, they have like guys that played in Boca Juniors, River Plate, some guys that played for Phoenix Rising. And he's making some of those guys look like they never played, they never touched the ball in their life. And he's only a 13-year-old kid. Then you have the same 13-year-old kid playing with 16-year-old kids, 15-year-old boys. And you're like, holy smokes, this kid is really good. But again, that goes back to our club saying we're not going to do MLS Next, we're not going to do ECNL, we're not going to do this. We're going to put our kids into the best position to be able to succeed, right? And some of those kids at our club have gotten offers to go to other, world-class academies.
Yeah.
And again, like we talked about it on our first episode, right? When we were first together that one night. All these platforms, all they're doing is just ruining the game in the United States. Because they're not, like, where are they sending these kids out to? They're not, kids that are playing MLS next year, at best, go play Division One soccer. At best.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, end up playing JUCO here in our backyards.
Well, some MLS Next players are, in fact, going, especially from Arizona, right? So, like, Phoenix College has this kid who went to the rival high school. I'm not going to discredit him. He's an incredible player. He was actually featured. I would say they played one of his goals on a clip at an MLS Next last year in December. Thank God he didn't play against us in high school, but he's at Phoenix College. And Phoenix College is a really, really good program. You know this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I mean, we're not knocking anything, but it's become so diluted because I think of this. I talked to one of my head coaches right now. Club Premier Two, ECNL Region League, E64. Like, yeah, these are quote unquote advanced leagues. Some clubs should be in Club Premier Two. They should be based on their skill level and things like that. But like, what's the end goal for these players?
Yeah.
Where are they going to go? Because realistically, if we were to take all the platforms and like kind of put them on the same playing field, kids who are playing on a CP2 team, let's say out in, I don't know, Tucson or Yuma, right? Some very small city in southern Arizona. Realistically, they should be able to play and compete at the level of JUCO. And the kids who are playing MLS Next and ECNL should be getting the Division 1 through 3s for college, or even potentially like the semi-professional leagues.
But that's not the case.
No.
And it goes back to, and I want to say I heard this from one of my buddies yesterday. He was having a conversation with someone else, and I forgot who was the person that I remember. I remember hearing the name, and he said the problem is it goes back to down to two things. One, we put coaches on these platforms that do not know how to develop, and then two, we as Arizona have fallen off the map so much because we are not competing with the best teams anymore. Right? California teams don't want to come to Arizona for tournaments anymore.
No. And we're afraid to go to California.
Because we're like, oh, we'll get our butts handed to us. Right? And I see it. But it goes back to, are you doing the right thing? I'm not going to disclose which team it was, but one of the parents sent me the film of what they look like now. And I remember looking at it and I was like, holy smokes, they have fallen off so much. I saw their film, what they looked like with me 6 months ago, two completely different teams. And again, I think it goes back to, I don't want to say that I would have been successful with that group of team in their league, but I think we would have been slightly more competitive. But then again, this goes back to what you just said, that all these youth programs, all they care about is the money side. And then there's a couple clubs here that are like my organization and the organization that I was before that are starting to make it more about the kid and try to make sure that can we put the right coach with the right, with the right players to help them become successful, become more than that.
Yeah.
Right? Because I remember watching one of their games, and I was talking to this technical director from my old organization. He said, "Well, our goal is to try to get these kids to go to college, and so we want to give them what college is going to look like by playing UPSL." Okay, that's a step forward. That's already looking at taking care of the child. My current organization does a really good job in saying we're not going to do all of that stuff because all that does is more money for the parents, and we go to these tournaments for what? So now what I like that they're doing is okay, let's make sure we would develop the kids, practice 4 times a week. Let's be different from everybody else outside of Arizona. And then every weekend they're in different tournaments. And every weekend they're winning tournaments. Because they're actually saying, let's develop to get better to then put you in the right situations to be successful.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because the coach is going to take over the 2014's team for next year because next year they're going to go 11v11. He's like, I'm hoping we can be successful enough to keep these boys and then survive a year and they don't have to worry about going to MLS Next. Because right now you take out the whole, if you take that whole the whole 2014 class at our current organization, all of those kids can make a platform team easily because they're just that good. Because we're developing the players to make sure we're not looking at we want to place you on these platforms. We're looking at we want to put you above that. And I think that's the vision that we're lacking and why we're not successful in the national team stage.
Yeah. So with it's really interesting because while I may feel like the organization that you're a part of is doing the right thing, like for example, one of the coolest things I'll do 2 points. The first one is the organization plays the players who are developing at the level that they are. So they do evaluations, and if they score within a range, that's the team that they are on, right?
Yeah.
Now, other organizations, other club teams are going to say, you are married to that kid for for the remainder of the year, regardless if he develops to be like the top player on the top platform that our club offers. They have to stay here because that's where you were able to pick them, you were able to develop them, and the reward is basically you get to reap those benefits in your ecosystem. Now, another team can come down and borrow that player, but that coach has the discretion to say yes or no, right? And we had a situation last year. We had a kid who developed under the coach beneath our team, which was great. But then when we wanted him, the coach was like, "Well, I need him for this, and I need him for that. We'll do a trade. No, I need that player." And he was like, "That's grabbing on." Now the thing that the flexibility in the rosters I think is always a good thing because you reward the players who are not only putting in the work but that are putting in the extra work outside of your training sessions and developing and getting better. Now, do I think that every team needs to be playing tournaments every weekend, trying to fit 90 games into a schedule? No. For me as like a parent and a coach, I'm like that's too much work.
Yeah.
And it is a lot, right? But the benefits speak for themselves, right? It works. The way that like academy teams are going, granted they're not playing tournaments every weekend, but they're playing top level teams. And your organization has some teams that are ranked in the top 5 in the nation. This is going against the Barca Residency Academy, the Miami teams, Philadelphia Union. Like they are competing against legitimate academy teams where these kids are. I want to sign a D1 college offer, or I want to go the professional route, whichever they decide. Right? You guys are playing against those teams, being competitive. Whether winning or losing, you're not getting blown out 8-0, 9-0.
Yeah.
And you're having kids who are getting nationally recognized of, oh, there's that kid. Like I want that kid. And I think the Barca Residency Academy got some kids from your organization as they pulled them in.
Yeah.
Because again, the name of the club, Barcelona, you have the exposure.
And like I said, I don't know if I told you this or I've even mentioned it here. I remember doing one of my classes and I had a couple of those coaches in one of my courses and I said, hey, do you guys ever look into like sending kids to La Masia or sending them to Europe? And their response was very nasty and very arrogantly said, well, if you want your kid to play at La Masia, then you should just go to Spain. So I was like, okay, so you guys are just playing the American game then. And then I'll tell you this in hindsight, right? Going back to your point, developing the players to be able to be successful. My buddy Zach says all the time, my job is for me to develop the players well enough that if a better team comes and says, hey, we want to get this guy out off your hands, that is my job. My job is to help you move on, right? And I believe in that. Your organization right now, or your previous organization that you have up on your wall, I had coaches when I was coaching the girls, the team that was, that was supposed to be above us in Scottsdale, and then even an age group older than us would come and ask me to borrow some of my players because not only can we compete with those girls, with the 2011 girls that were in Scottsdale, and we would go toe to toe with them, but we were also beating the 2010s team. And their coach would come up to me and tell me, hey, can I borrow some of your girls to come and play for us in this tournament? And I said, yeah, why not? Because at the end of the day, it goes back to it's their development. And to your point, I understand like fitting 90 games in a roster season in a year or whatever is a lot. But I got in trouble for playing overly extra tournaments with those girls.
Mhm.
But I look at it again. It's touches on the ball. You're playing. You know, I want to say that those extra tournaments that we did is what helped consolidate the idea, the vision, the thought process, the philosophy to the girls, right? And so that helped them so much that they were able to grow uh, to be able to play. Could they be playing in the platform they're playing on right now? Yes, they can. And it's sad to see the results, and it pains me to see them struggle. Again, but this I'm not going to go say anything much about that, but it just pains me to see the struggle. And some of my other teams and even that team are saying, "Oh, we kind of miscoach," because again, it goes back to what are we? Are these platforms there to help us develop a player to put them in successful situations, or are they just there to just fill in a roster and it is what it is?
Yeah. And I mean, to tag along with that, right? The way that players develop the most is in games, right? They develop in the game like situations because you can, as much as you can be the best coach, you can be the best, training session developer, right? But you're never going to 100% mimic what it's like to play in a game where you're one of the 11 on the field against another 11 on the field. Your coach is on the sideline, your parents are there, right? That's a very, very difficult scenario to replace. So yeah, I would totally agree where the games are where the development happens. Okay. And to your point again, there needs to be flexibility in a roster, right? So if you are an ECNL coach, I'm ECNL RL, you're like, hey, your striker's doing really, really well. I want to pull them up and have them be on my team.
Yeah.
I think it's fair for me to say, well, which players do you need that aren't getting enough playing time? Send one of those down. Let's do it one for one trade. So I'm not left in the dust. If I have a roster of 16, 17 players, you take one, now I'm at 16 or 15. And that makes my life just a little bit harder with training sessions and things like that because I plan for the team that I have. And I had a situation like that last year where this coach, well, let's just have this girl play for both teams. But you're asking this girl to play 160 minutes twice a week because she's playing 80 minutes for my team, and then she goes play in 80 minutes for your team. How is that fair to the girls that you already have on your roster that are older? And how is it fair to my girls when she's one of my key players? I have no problem with her going up and playing in better competition, but I need a trade here. And he said, "Oh well, I'll give you these two players." And I tried them out, and I'm like, dude, these are wrong picks. These are two girls that wouldn't get minutes on my team if I had them rostered. This isn't a fair trade. I need someone who can replace or somewhat replace the skill level, the IQ, everything that's already there. I can take those two and develop them, no problem, but I need a fair trade. And they were like, no, we're fine. We're fine.
See, and it's interesting because when I ran into a scenario with your organization, I told the parents, I didn't tell the parents. I did it through, through the vine. I said, hey, let's go to my current organization, which I said, we won't have enough players for two teams, but what we will do is the top performing girls on my team would go and fill in the gaps for the other team, for the first level team. And then the girls that are needing a little bit of confidence and extra touches and all that other stuff are going to come and fill in the gaps on our team. And that was the idea. And most of the parents are like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that sounds great." And I do agree. I think to your point, right? I wouldn't say the player necessarily needs to leave your roster, but at the same time, I say if let's say if I'm a first team, if I'm an ECNL team coach and you're an ECRL coach, I think it should be, hey, your striker is doing really, really well. I'm struggling putting the ball behind the net. Let's get him some minutes on the ECNL team. Here is, hey, these guys are good enough to be on your team, but they need some extra minutes. They may need some confidence boost.
Yeah.
Let's get them some minutes on your side, and then Once the weekend's over, they go back to their teams
Yep.
and practice. Because then that's going to create a culture of like, yo, coach is not only looking to make us better, but coach is also trying to get us out there.
Yeah. Get us
And then-
opportunities to play at the higher levels.
Yeah,
And it adds pressure. Pressure makes diamonds, right?
yeah,
It adds pressure to the bench players who might just be coasting. I'm on the bench. I'll get in with the coach when the coach lets me in. That's fine. But now you're like, oh, now you can get replaced by a lower level team to come into your spot.
yeah.
That adds more pressure, and I think it only elevates everything else.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I feel like what we're saying, everybody has said it, right? Landon Donovan said it. Tim Howard has said it. Lexi Lalas, everybody's saying that everything starts at the grassroots level, right? That's why I really like my current organization and I like my previous organization because they're looking to try to change the idea and the culture of what USA Soccer was and what it is.
Yep.
So I mean, even like FC Arizona and Thunder, right? Arizona Soccer Club, that they just did that merge. They're still trying to figure out what they're going to rebrand into, but the owner owns like a second or third division team in England.
Yeah.
Right. So he's looking to try to create this idea of like, can we get these kids to go out somewhere else? And even at my current organization, I think there was at one point looking to purchase a team from England to try to get these kids to go overseas and
for
all
a
that stuff.
pathway to pro.
Exactly. But if and again, right, like for example, I'm going to use New York City for this. They're a sister club to Montevideo City. Montevideo City is also a sister club to Manchester City, and then they're also sister club to, I forget what's the other team. Well, there's just like 5 or 6 clubs that they're all sister clubs.
It's like a Red Bull situation.
Yeah, and you look at them, they all have the same sky blue that Man City has. And I look at it and I say, okay, if I'm a kid at New York, and if I'm New York City, and I'm playing on their MLS Next Pro team, all of those kids should be playing. Maybe maybe not necessarily MLS, or maybe not necessarily in the Prem, but they should be looking to sell those guys, even move those guys to South America, or even sell those guys to some of the lower leagues in South America.
Yeah.
But again, we don't look at the future for the kids that way. And if you go mostly on the boys' side, you ask them, hey, what is your goal with soccer? Every boy will tell you, I want to go pro. I want to go pro. Right? And then they get that reality check when they go to college. They're like, oh, well, I'm not making pro anymore. Might as well get my degree.
Yep.
And yes, I get it that you're competing against the rest of the world in your same position. And I know that there's going to be guys that are going to be better than you, and there's going to be guys that are worse than you. And can you work yourself up to be some of these guys? Yes, you can. But the thing is, how bad do you want it? And the thing is, as USA is, we're doing our best to be able to put these kids in those situations.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's time for us to put out an episode on kind of the recruiting process, what where I'm getting certified in like scouting certifications, and I'm working as the intern in the scouting department. I think it's kind of time for us to kind of not necessarily give all the secrets, because there's a lot of factors that go into that, a lot. But I mean, we can go in as you as a college coach, this is what you look at. Me as like a scout, these are the kind of things that I look for. What are some of the things that we've been asked to look for in certain players? And that way, because I think the goal of this entire podcast is not necessarily talk about the problems that youth soccer has. It's always good to talk about, right? Because the more exposure that people have, the more that they'll understand of like, okay, now things need to change. And there might be someone who has a lot of money and has really good lawyers that can be like, hey, let's challenge the system and let's make some changes here. But I think at least we need to give some of these younger players the toolkit in order to go to the next level.
Yeah.
Right. And we can break it down by platform. We can break it down by like, hey, individual skill set. Because as we said before, the platform shouldn't matter,
Yeah.
right? If I have a CP2 team, a player should be able to make a community college team
100%.
without having to play ECNL. But as you know, I know the college coaches that are here, they want the MLS Next players, and they're able to get them, which is weird because realistically they should be getting better.
Yep. But yeah, guys, stay tuned. And for next week, we'll definitely talk about that. I'm going to look up something on my email because I definitely want to bring this up because this will probably help us. If I can find it. If not, I will post about it. Because there was a thing that reached out to us and said, hey, if you guys get in this code, you guys can promote it. You guys can get something of that sort. But I can't find it on my emails right now. Actually, let me see if I saved it on my favorites. Nope, I did not save it as my favorites. But I'll make a post about it. Yeah, tune in next week. We'll definitely talk about that because maybe next week I'll have some surprise news for you as well.
Oh boy!
So
Honduras finally qualified.
So,
we gotta wait till November.
So we gotta wait till November to Honduras qualify. But yeah, tune in next week. We'll definitely get this. Well, I know we didn't post our previous podcast, but that will be posted. That one and this one will be posted on at the same time, so there will be a lot of content going out there. But yeah, tune in next week and be ready for my post at PEP5050_4 for that special promo code that we will be able to get some money through to be able to grow this podcast. All right, guys, thank you for your love and support. Peace.